Welcome to this explainer. Today we are diving headfirst into a place where, honestly, most people just don't look. We're talking about the very front pages of an international standard. Specifically, we're going to unpack the often skipped forward sections of the ISO/IEC 17025-2017 document. You might think the foreword of a dense technical manual is just, well, bureaucratic filler, but it's actually a hidden map. It shows us exactly how global science operates, aligns, and ultimately builds trust. Okay, so let's dive into this. Have you ever opened a massive document and realized it doesn't just have one foreword, or even two, but three completely distinct forewords? Well, that is exactly the case here. It's kind of like a matryoshka doll, those nested Russian dolls. Why on earth do we need so many layers? Well, it's because international rules aren't just magically handed down. They have to be carefully born at a global level, translated over to a regional level, and then finally adopted at a national level. Let's take the title of the British Standard Version, for example. It is quite a mouthful. BSEN ISO/IEC 17025-2017. Seriously, that is a lot of acronyms. But here's the thing. Every single one of those letters represents a massive structural layer of international cooperation. It literally tells the story of how a single standard for testing and calibration labs travels all the way from the international stage right down to local laboratories in the UK. So, here is our roadmap for today. 1. The global stage. 2. The regional bridge. 3. National implementation. 4. Promoting lab confidence. And finally, number 5, why the forward matters.
All right, part 1. The global stage. ISO/CASCO and IEC.
So at the very highest tier, international bodies collaborate to establish these worldwide scientific standards. This specific document was drafted by ISO's Committee on Conformity Assessment, usually just called CASCO, working directly in collaboration with the International Electrotechnical Commission, or IEC. ISO acts as this huge worldwide federation of national standards bodies, and together with the IEC, they hammer out these joint agreements. And this matters because it ensures that a laboratory sitting in Tokyo is playing by the exact same foundational rules as a laboratory over in Toronto.
Now, what's absolutely fascinating here is how the Global Forward explicitly maps out the technical evolution of the standard since its last edition way back in 2005. It highlights a massive shift, the integration of risk-based thinking. The forward actually notes that this allowed them to reduce the number of rigid, prescriptive requirements, swapping them out for performance-based ones instead. It's basically a shift toward greater flexibility in procedures and documentation. And surprisingly, for the first time ever, this third edition officially added a concrete definition for the word laboratory. I mean, these aren't just minor administrative tweaks. We're talking about fundamental shifts in how global science is managed.
Moving right along to Part 2, the Regional Bridge, the CEN European Standard.
So, opening up our second nesting doll brings us to the European Standard Endorsement. This is where the document gets approved by CEN, the European Committee for Standardization, and this is exactly where the bureaucracy shows its teeth. Members of CEN and CENELAC are strictly bound by internal regulations to give this European standard the exact same status as a national standard. The absolutely critical phrase found right there in the text is without any alteration. A regional body acts as a super rigid bridge, essentially ensuring the global consensus doesn't get watered down or tweaked as it crosses borders.
Which brings us to Part 3, National Implementation, UK adoption via BSI.
And this brilliantly illustrates our complete matryoshka cascade. The rules start big at the global level with ISO and CASCO. Then they cascade down to the European regional level with CEN. And finally, they land at the national level, in this case with the British Standards Institution, or BSI. By mapping it out like this, you can clearly see the unbroken chain of custody for international scientific standards. But implementing a brand new standard means you have to get rid of the old one. The European Forward explicitly dictates the timeline for this transition. By adopting the 2017 edition, a very strict bureaucratic mandate was triggered. Any conflicting national standards, namely that old 2005 version, had to be completely withdrawn by December 2020 at the absolute latest. This ensures the global community doesn't get fragmented by stragglers who are clinging to outdated scientific frameworks. And BSI's National Forward illustrates exactly how this works in practice. They officially state that the UK implementation is absolutely identical to the global ISO/IEC text, period. Furthermore, they officially declare that the old standard is superseded and withdrawn. Those local, historical rules are entirely paved over by an exact, unedited copy of the global agreement.
It's all about total international alignment.
All right, Part 4, Promoting Confidence, the True Goal. Having navigated all that dense, bureaucratic front matter, let's look at what this standard is actually designed to achieve. The crucial point is captured perfectly in a quote right from the introduction. It reads, "This document has been developed with the objective of promoting confidence in the operation of laboratories." All those international committees, the regional endorsements, the identical national adoptions, they all exist for this one very real human purpose. It provides a solid framework so labs can prove they operate competently and generate valid results, which makes cooperation and the sharing of results between different countries so much easier.
A huge part of building that confidence relies on some core principles defined early on. Take Section 3's definition of impartiality. It's simply defined as the presence of objectivity. The standard explicitly states this means conflicts of interest simply do not exist, or if they do, they are resolved so they don't adversely influence the lab's activities. The text even throws in some synonyms for us: freedom from bias, neutrality, fair-mindedness. It essentially grounds a massive global agreement right into the practical, everyday scientific principle of unbiased testing.
Finally, Part 5, Why It Matters, the Unseen Infrastructure. This brings us to the end of our journey today, and really to the core reason why we bother analyzing these forewords in the first place. We almost always skip introductory pages to get straight to the meat of a document, right? But as we've seen, the skipped pages of ISO 17025 actually hold the master blueprint for how modern global science cooperates. So, I want to leave you with this provocative thought. If the very rules governing how a local laboratory establishes scientific truth essentially start as international treaties passed down without a single alteration, well, just how much of what we consider local science is actually a massive, invisible global consensus? It is a pretty fascinating perspective on the unseen infrastructure making every lab result trustworthy. Thanks for joining me for this explainer, and remember to keep looking for the hidden maps in the things you read every day.